Let's have a talk, let's have a chat, talking about a little this and that. Hello and welcome to another episode of This and That. In yesterday, we did an addition to Veritas the Quest called Cutlery Lessons. In today's episode on False and True, the Mirror of God, I made mention that there might be a part 2. This is part 2. Call it the concept of blades. But before I begin, to listen to more on This and That for Veritas the Quest, go to talkingaboutthисandthat.wordpress.com and click on the podcast link. Because this is not the writing of Bob Newman, it will not be featured on our blog page. So you'll just have to listen very, very closely. In posting yesterday on Facebook, I got a rather lengthy reply about the Roman sword. My response was, could that circumcise? Even this person had to admit this to be unlikely. But in the teaching, I had said the Roman sword had 4 edges. Normally, we consider the live cutting quote-unquote edge as a singular piece when it is actually not. Call it a long point, for the razor is where the 2 flats of the bevel join to form the quote-unquote point. So it is with a regular implement that only has a single quote-unquote cutting edge. Now, the Roman short sword has 2 sides for the cutting, and they are such that the damages will go on either stroke. But the Roman fighting implement forms also the tip and the point, the quote-unquote point of the argument. The gospel is said to be, in some cases, 4 squared. The words that I got here were grace/mercy and then righteousness/truth. But instead of just righteousness, think judgment. For the gospel also judges. If you hear it and harden not the heart, grace/mercy. But if not, judgment/truth righteousness/truth. In the more rounded tip of the Roman short sword, the 4 faces combine, the upper and lower, so then as it is sharpened, each face on the quote-unquote edge that cuts must be addressed uniformly along the cutting side and up through the point in long stroke. Iron sharpens iron, thus the rasp. This statement means like causes the focus of like to sharpen. Logos and rhema sharpen to cut. However, the concept of a Roman sword is added to the panoply of the Roman armor because this is what Paul had on hand to talk about the aspects of Christ as armor upon us to people who lived in a Roman world. But why the concept of this short sword? In the end, does it matter? To some it does, because they look at one level of the written word and then take off with it. Most imagine the armor as the defensive with the shield, and when the Spirit is using the logos and rhema, we're on the attack, lopping demon heads and some sort thing. Funny how this is not in the written word. The words are specific and 2 images appear. One is the armor with the sword of the Spirit. The other is the active word that is sharper than any 2-edged sword or battle sword that Paul is thinking of as the sword of the Roman soldier. Why? It holds its edge in battle. It never dulls. It never chips. Because in the end, the image is a sword, but the word is word. Then the Greek speaks, and it's a whole other image. Living, the logos of God. So it's not rhema, it's logos. And the imagery goes back to John 1:1, Christ the logos of God. Okay, this quote-unquote logos is active in the Greek, as well as the English. But Greek is specific, so this active is more like operant, quote-unquote enacting, 2 words, in, acting, is the transliteration. Active in function, keener or sharper than any 2-mouthed, distomon, not two-edged. It is where we get the idea of edges, because the logos is sharper than a blade, a sword, but it's assumed to be a Roman short sword. Still double-edged is the English to the obvious double-mouthed of the Greek. The imagery only gets weirder from here. It through-reaches or penetrates, and we use the word pierce. But to penetrate, one can also cut. I use the word cut because of the action of the logos. It divides or parts or severs soul and spirit, connections or articulation, and we say joints and marrows. And we immediately are at the vine as the marrow source and the branch as the fruit-bearing connection. We, as the Gentiles, are the grafts. The word for judge is kritikos, from where we get the word critique, criticize. Suddenly we are in the gospel, and Jesus warning about us doing this same function on each other, meaning he alone has the right to perform that function. We are merely to make the other aware of the issue, but that is not criticism. It is warning. It's, to put it bluntly, yo, dude, your fly's undone. Yerp. It is sounding an alarm that something is malfunctioning. So then join the imagery. Two mouths of the logos. One, it is written to the attacker when standing against the wiles. Two, circumcision of the heart. For it is the heart that is critiqued, because from it comes the issues that defile, that cause us to turn away, that can cause us to go from sheep to goat. Why else does James take up the discourse of the heart and tell us to draw near to God, so God draws near to us and tells us to purify the heart wherever the doubting is? The sword idea is an imagery. The concept is Christ, the Logos, speaking remata, or rhema, to us in his spirit. That is the defending and purging / pruning / cutting off, as in excision. But the idea of being harvested of God and threshed of God as we grow in our walk, that is a whole other set of images, a whole other idea of the Logos at work in us. And that will do it for this mini episode of This and That. Until then.